It's Monday night, so it's another edition of Monday Night Sports Talk here on theairnetwork.net. Welcome to it. It's an official holiday in Pennsylvania, the first day of buck season. A couple of deer hunters probably in their dreams are Dave Shannon, of course, in the Erie area tonight, Jimmy Tighe in Berks County, and Chad State's Huntington County actually went out looking for a buck today with your son Ryan for the first time. How'd you make out, Chad?
Well, we saw a couple deer. They were too far away. A couple doe, weren't allowed to shoot does. But, all in all, when you're in the woods with your son, it's a good day.
Yeah, any day out of work is probably a good day, I got to say that. Meanwhile, Dave, you're up in Erie this weekend skiing, maybe doing some tobogganing. You can't be doing any fishing, are you?
Nope, snow's all gone, and fishing abounds.
Wow, okay.
As a matter of fact, today's crowds of fishermen were larger than they were on Sunday.
No kidding.
That's what has gone on here. It's kind of a change. A lot of places do give their employees the Monday off because of buck season.
Exactly. So why not go fishing?
Yeah, so the guys have opted for, that aren't hunters like me, end up opting for fishing. So
well, I know Jimmy Tighe had I know Jimmy Tighe had the day off, but Jimmy, I know you didn't go fishing, you probably didn't go hunting. What'd you do all day real quick?
I slept and did housework.
Well, that's what you do. That's what you do on your day off, Jimmy. Well, good for you. You didn't catch a thing, but you caught a buzz. Well, actually, you caught some sleep, and that's a good thing. All right. Hey, meanwhile, I know you guys caught some of the action over the Thanksgiving holiday. What a great holiday it was, but it's a time of year I always look forward to because we have those games on Thanksgiving Day. In addition to the college, of course, playoffs begin to heat up because it's rivalry week. Let's first start talking about the Steelers. They played on Thursday. And Chad, as I watched that game Thursday, I don't know. I'm still a little skeptic about the Steelers putting it all together. They played the Colts without Andrew Luck, winning that game 28-7. They faced the Giants this week, which kind of scares me. Your evaluation of the Steelers in that game on Thursday, if you got a chance to see any of it.
I watched the game, and, maybe Tomlin has them playing good football now, maybe not. It's hard to evaluate because it's like you said, Andrew Luck wasn't there. So, right. It's kind of a, 50-50 deal. This week's a huge game.
Oh, man.
Make no mistake about it. This week is a telltale as to where the Steelers are. The New York Giants at home will tell you what type of football team the Pittsburgh Steelers are.
Yeah. And I didn't see any long bombs thrown to Antonio Brown, Jimmy. We had a little bit of running there, with our running back. And even Jesse James got into some of the action, but I wasn't hardly even impressed on. And by that time, it was the last game after I'd watched the other games. It was sort of like anticlimactic. Did you think the same thing on Thursday?
Yeah. You knew the Steelers were coming out tough with that very first play.
Right.
With what was like the strip, almost a strip sack, fumble, whatever that was. The defense was like, you know what? We're prime time. We're going to come play. Antonio had his 3 touchdowns, la-di-da, but like what Chad said, it was the Giants game this week is going to be key because like also what Chad said, there was no Andrew Luck. There was like a guy who floated around the NFL, whatever he did. And this week's game is going to be a big game for Pittsburgh. So I was impressed with the way the defense played, only giving up 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how they really do against Eli Manning and the Giants.
Yeah, Dave, I was watching that game on Thursday, and, it was sort of a telling story, sort of like two tales and two stories. You had a quarterback who I have no idea. They say the guy was in the league, I think, 6 years. He must have been riding the pines. And he didn't look all that bad against our defense. So our defense is still soft in the corners as far as I'm concerned.
I think so. I think that's something to be concerned about. But as both Jimmy and Chad said, this is the one that's going to tell you for sure.
Yeah.
I think certainly the Giants are a much more solid team. You know Eli's going to start, and that will be certainly the best test for the Steelers at this particular point in the season, where you're hoping maybe they're turning a corner, but you don't know for sure. Maybe you'll know for sure after this. One thing I will suggest, though, is that the Steelers make sure they have the game tape of the Baltimore Ravens game against the New York Giants, which the Ravens should have won, but ended up losing. But they played the New York Giants really tough on that particular day. So, and we've talked about this before. Have access to every other team's game, all the games on their schedule anytime you want to. So you can certainly plan a good defensive scheme.
Like I said, it was a long day that day. We had a couple of games. I think there were a total of 3 games in the NFL that day.
Right.
So by the time we got to 8:30, it was sort of anticlimactic. Now, moving forward as we take on the Giants, and as I look at this logjam of teams in the AFC, what division is that we're in, Chad? Central. You got the Ravens or the North. You got the Ravens there. You've got Cincinnati there. I'm watching this game yesterday that Cincinnati actually could have beaten, Baltimore when it came right down to it. And some of the stuff that Harbaugh did with holding on to the ball at the last minute and each one of the players holding somebody, because I guess I don't know, Chad, straighten me out on that call. The game cannot end on a defensive play like that if there's a defensive penalty, or it can. Because I was confused.
That wouldn't have been a defensive penalty. That would have been an offensive penalty.
Yeah.
It means the game can end on it. It's a smart move by Harbaugh.
Well, they had a safety anyhow.
That is a great move. 19-12. How many seconds left to go? 12 seconds left to go.
12 seconds, yeah.
If you punt and they return it, they can tie the ball game. If you just have all your guys hold and run out of the back of the end,
well, yeah, but
the game's over anyway.
Could you have not had your
smart move by Harbaugh?
So you're saying to me you couldn't have had Flacco in that last moment just run around? Well, I guess he couldn't actually run around the backfield because they could have tackled him in the end zone, which resulted in a touchdown.
And you don't want to put your starting quarterback in that position. Why not put your punter in that position?
Yeah, that's true.
But that was a great move. I thought that was a very, very smart interpretation of the rules, knowing what you can do and knowing what you're going to get flagged. That's a great move. I've never seen it done before.
Yeah.
Because situations always, dictate, what's going to happen. But that was a great move.
Well, that obviously must have been something either Harbaugh or somebody on the sideline saw and said, "Hey, coach, this might be a good move for you, from a strategy standpoint." But here again, when that happened, now we're kind of like still neck and neck with the Ravens. And as we all mentioned, this coming Sunday will be very pivotal in the success or whether or not even the Steelers can get into the playoffs as far as a wild card. Now, having said that, I'm going to ask Jimmy and then Dave, as what kind of prediction do you have on this Giants game? Because obviously Beckham Jr. is not effective if they can shut him down. First Jimmy and then Dave.
I think the Steelers have a good shot in winning this game. Just with the fact that the secondary isn't that good for Pittsburgh, but they did come up with 2 interceptions against Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison he's now heating up.
Yeah.
And, the linebackers are doing well. You have like the 3-headed monster, the killer bees doing their thing. So, I'm going to be a little homer right now, and I'm going to say that Pittsburgh will win the game.
Right.
Final score will be something like 23-17.
Hey, well, here's something, and just before I get your prediction, Dave, what happened on Thursday, it looked like James Harrison tackled somebody, and then there were a bunch of head slaps, and they took him out of the game. I don't know if he might have had some kind of, head injury that was suffered, on Thursday or not. It just was the weirdest thing that happened. Chad, did you see that? Everybody seemed to be slapping him on the head, and he had to go out of the game.
The funny thing is,
I did see that, and
go ahead, Chad. Go ahead.
As I say, I did see that, and age matters. How old is this guy?
Well,
he's been around the league forever. He's retired 3 times and come back. Slaps on the head, they would hurt me at this point in time. I wouldn't want some of those big guys with the force that they have in their arms slapping him in the back of the head. So,
well, maybe,
it can happen.
You were going to say, Jimmy, real quick on that, because they were repeatedly slapping him in the head area, and he had to go out. It looked woozy to me.
Funny thing was the next day, because I belong to James Harrison's social media network site, right? Mm-hmm. 7 o'clock in the morning, he's in the gym working out, lifting weights.
As always, huh? Yeah, he's a beast.
It was weird. It's like, okay, you took the guy out, whatever, and now 7 o'clock in the morning, he's back in the Steelers facility doing his workout, showing everybody, his lifting weights or whatever he's doing. So I thought it was kind of weird.
Well, he's old, but he's effective. Dave, as we move forward, your prediction on this upcoming game on Sunday at 4:30 against the New York Giants and Eli. Is that game in Pittsburgh or in New York?
Yes.
Okay, that will be in Pittsburgh.
At Pittsburgh.
What do you think? How's that turn out?
That's what makes it even bigger. That's what makes it even bigger because, there was that everybody thought that maybe, everybody always holds out hope that when you have the Patriots on the schedule and they're in Pittsburgh, that somehow you're going to beat them. And that didn't happen. But now you got the Giants in a real telltale kind of game. I think the Steelers, because it is in Pittsburgh, are going to end up winning this game, and I'm going to go with a 28-24 final.
28-24, and Steelers come out on top. Chad, you got a prediction on that game on the Sunday?
I'm with Dave. I think because this is a home game, that matters. I'm just praying to goodness that they play with a sense of urgency.
Oh, yeah.
And they play inspired football, which is what I haven't seen out of this team yet. Mm-hmm. They've just played lackluster football. Pretty boring and mediocre up to this point. This is a game where they've got to come out firing on all cylinders, inspired with a sense of urgency. I do think they get it done. I think it's going to be really, really close.
Right.
I like Dave's score of 28-24. I think it's going to be in about that range. Just to be different, I'm going to say 25-21 Pittsburgh, but it's going to be a really, really close game. But I think they eke this one out. But what you want to see is playing inspired with a sense of urgency.
And, put all the components together because I really, truly don't believe everything has been working effectively or efficiently. We may have a running game one time, and then we have no defense. We have the linemen who are holding people out, and Ben doesn't get destroyed in the backfield, but we have no running game or passing game. So if they can put all the pieces together, I agree with most of you guys, if not all you guys. Yeah, definitely, that could be a Steeler win. It could have catapult them or at least keep the momentum going so they'll at least be able to sniff this year probably won't turn out to be at least a wild card. Now, moving on throughout the league itself, as we get set up for that game on Saturday or Sunday, I should say, there are a couple of games that happened last night. And, Jimmy, you're one of those Seattle fans. And I'm a Seattle fan. I'm sort of like the guy that says, well, Seattle or Dallas is going to show up in the NFC and somebody's going to end up playing New England in the Super Bowl if New England doesn't fail along the way. Meanwhile, yesterday, to my surprise, and I guess to the surprise of Seattle Seahawks, they got beat by Tampa Bay, 14-5. How do you remedy that kind of situation when you're the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, first off, I'm not a Seattle fan, just to let you know.
Okay.
But anyways, no, it was emotional. It was an emotional game for Tampa Bay. Seattle coming in.
Jeez.
They're coming in the Tampa.
Right.
They're big game for them. They can, with Jameis Winston as a hot quarterback and Mike Evans as a really good receiver. Nobody's talking about their defense. Mm-hmm. And Tampa's defense has totally shut down a high-powered Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham offense.
Okay.
Period.
Right.
And that's why they play the games, and it was just a really good win for Tampa Bay. And it was a good win for Jameis Winston on his resume reel.
So do you think that when it's all said and done, Tampa Bay will be in the hunt this year, or is that probably a year down the road yet?
My prediction for as I said all year, it's going to be Atlanta or Dallas coming out of the NFC and New England coming out of the AFC, but watch out for them Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, you have said. Now let me ask Dave this about that. You're talking about the Raiders yesterday. They defeated Carolina 35-32. Dave, I don't know how many games in a row the Raiders have now won. We remember the days of old, back in the 60s and 70s, when Raiders were always the team to watch in a different era totally from what we've seen the last decade. You think these Raiders are for real, Dave?
Oh, there's no doubt. And I'm going to give all the props to Jack Del Rio. I talked about this a week ago.
Yes, you did.
And since he has arrived in Oakland, what a turnaround. There's always some changes in talent on a team, and, certain players can make a big difference. But
right.
I'm going to give all the props to the success of the Raiders to Jack Del Rio. The guy is a good coach. I just, I will never forget this as a Steeler fan, going back over the years. And when he had the Jacksonville Jaguars playing as a really good football team.
Right.
I mean, that was frightening to see the Jaguars, whether they were coming to Pittsburgh or you were going to Florida. As a Steeler fan, you were concerned either way, whether they were showing up. And so, Jack's done an outstanding job there. Unlike Bruce Arians, who had his, what do we want to call it, 15 minutes of fame a year ago. He's back to what he was as the Steelers' offensive coordinator. He sucked.
Well, you also have
so
that
now,
kid, the guy,
as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
Right.
He sucks.
Well, also you had the guy who was the Cleveland Brown coach, if I'm not mistaken, Chad. Didn't he give it a go out in Oakland at one time as the head coach? I mean, just briefly. I can't remember all the head coaches at Oakland over the past decade. I mean, those guys have been in and out.
All the coaches at Cleveland over the last decade, too. It's about the same carousel.
Yeah, that's true, too.
In fact, I think they're just swapping them back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
Cleveland's a mess. I am a firm believer that you are successful. Any company or any type of business is successful from the top down.
Yeah.
Cleveland absolutely stinks at the top.
Well,
in fact, it can't smell any worse.
Well, that's
the top,
their management.
It's so bad at the bottom.
And that is indicative of their management. Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks live in the studio. Dave Shannon live from Erie tonight. Got Chad States from Huntington and Jimmy Tighe from the Philadelphia area down around Berks County. Let me ask you this, Dave, or again, Chad, you were mentioning the Cleveland Brown coach. What is his name? Hugh Jackson. He was on a press conference yesterday. You're now 0-12. The dude, I'm sorry, I felt bad for him. He looked like he wanted to cry. Is it his fault or is it indeed? I mean, it's got to be management. I mean, they're just having
his fault. He walked into that situation, Greg. I mean, there's you can hand that to Nick Saban, and Nick Saban's going to be 0-12 right now. It's just it's a sorry situation.
What about Lane Kiffin?
Kiffin.
Either or. It's a sorry situation that an organization lets their team get like that, and that's exactly what Cleveland has done.
Is that sort of like the 76ers? I mean, like when the 76ers got the top draft pick.
You're right. A great comparison to draw to is sort of like the 76ers. The Raiders were like that for years and have finally fixed it because they got Jack Del Rio in, who said, you know what we need? We need a great offensive line. There's make no mistake about it. The reason Oakland is really, really good in the AFC and Dallas is really, really good in the NFC is they have the two best offensive lines in football.
Yeah, Jimmy, another team is
got it.
Yeah, another team that's got to be crying right now, Jimmy, is the team that has only won 2 games this season. Much to my surprise, that whole place needs to be demolished. Dolphins beat the 49ers yesterday, 31-24. Man, what's the problem with the 49ers? This is not the team that we remember from a couple of years ago, bidding for a place.
Kelly.
Yeah. Is it Chip Kelly again?
That's all I'm going to say. He ruined the Eagles.
There you go.
The Eagles were a good team back then.
Yeah.
When Chip Kelly came in, the Eagles were a good team with what's his name? With Reed as their coach. Andy Reid as their coach.
Andy Reid, yeah.
They bring in Chip Kelly and his high-flying Oregon Duck offense, the speed, whatever. And then Chip Kelly failed in Philadelphia. So what's he do? He goes to San Francisco.
Is he still doing that high-flying offense?
Still in San Francisco, and Chip Kelly's failing in San Francisco.
Okay, let me ask you this because
Harbaugh had that team in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Harbaugh took them all the way to the Super Bowl.
Chad.
Chip Kelly comes in. He's failing again.
Okay, real quick, Jimmy, let me jump in there.
An NFL coach. Chip Kelly is a college coach.
Okay.
Period.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. You got the last word on that one. Real quick, back to Chad, then I'll get to Dave. Chad, you're a baseball coach. You have a kid that comes in. He has potential, but he only has certain gifts. So do you use him only in certain occasions, or do you realize that you build a team around this kid? I mean, for some reason, Chip Kelly's philosophy is not working in San Francisco, and like Jimmy said, it didn't work in Philadelphia. Is he just a college coach?
Yes, he's just a college coach,
okay.
and he can recruit players for his system in college.
Right.
It's very hard to draft players in the NFL for your system. Because college systems don't work in the National Football League.
Okay.
They're two different things. You know, you're gonna play that college system in the NFL, and your defense isn't going to be worth squat because they're going to be out there for 75 plays.
That's right.
You've got to change up your philosophy if you're going to go to another league. You know, I can coach teen league baseball all I want, but guess what? If I go to high school, I probably got to adapt a different philosophy because it's another level. Chip Kelly's not willing to do that, and
well, obviously, if we see that, Dave, don't you think management sees that every time this guy goes somewhere that he's not a good fit for pro football? I mean, like you said, Nick Saban, he was never a good fit for football. And you know, as far as the pro ranks, how many college coaches do we know have come through Steve Spurrier? He stayed in the league very short period of time. You know, the only one, Pete Carroll might be the only one I can give him some props. You know what I'm saying? He made the transition, you know, when he went with Seattle.
Pete Stock, he had some people behind him. He motivates in a way that is completely different. I think that one of the problems with a Chip Kelly, maybe even a Steve Spurrier, is you get used to, you know, that you have this one thing of leverage when you're a college coach with your players, and that is, I'm paying for your education. I gave you a scholarship. This is what you are going to do for me. Well, guess what? Welcome to the locker room where everybody's a full-grown adult.
Thank you.
And you hold nothing over their heads.
We're grown people here. We don't do jumping jacks anymore. I hear you. Oh, man. Okay.
So, and I think that's where the problem is. I think those guys that fail are stuck on their college motivation rather than making the transition to adult.
And it's hard to motivate adults the same way you do with a 17, 18-year-old kid. Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. By the way, getting set for Bearcat Winter Sports with boys, girls basketball. And Chad States will have some Bearcat wrestling coming up in just a few weeks, and we'll look forward to that. Chad, we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program, Chad, so stick around. Hey, meanwhile, guys, I want to get your opinion tonight, Dave. One of the other teams that we grew up with in our younger days, we were much younger then, when the Green Bay Packers reigned supreme. They're taking on the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. I'm not going to watch the game, but at the same time, somebody will. And how do you call that game? Packers, Eagles, both of those teams are kind of like floundering from time to time.
That game is at Philadelphia. Am I correct?
I think it is, Philadelphia.
Not that it makes a lot of difference, I don't think, with the Eagles.
Well, it did
but
for
I'm going to go ahead and
Steelers.
say the Eagles. And Green Bay, I don't know what's wrong.
Man.
I don't know what's wrong. I have watched that team a couple of times now, and they just look like a rudderless ship.
They're floundering.
They spin around in the field, and they don't accomplish anything. So I think the Eagles are going to walk away with a win, and I, for the life of me, cannot figure out. I think a lot of the problems are on the offensive side of the football. But I don't see anything wrong with Rodgers. I don't know what Chad and Jimmy think about this.
Let me ask Chad real quick.
Rodgers seems to be okay.
I'll ask Chad, and then we'll talk with Jimmy. Chad, there seems to be this problem between, I believe it's McCarthy, the coach, and Rodgers this year. I don't know if it's a communications problem or one of those problems like we talked about with Tomlin. After a while, you've been there so long, it's like blah, 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 blah. Do you know if there's a problem with Rodgers and his coach this year, or just a plain old problem with Green Bay?
I don't know. It's like Dave said. This is weird. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers play like this in my life. I mean, just again, uninspired football.
Well, could it be
almost like he doesn't know what to do at times?
Yeah.
And I've never seen him as indecisive on the field as what he is. I don't know if time's just catching up.
That's
with him,
what I'm thinking.
All that running around, he was a mobile quarterback, and maybe his body is just starting to fail him, and Green Bay's trying to hide that fact by continually throwing him out there. I don't know. Something is definitely wrong with that football team, though. I know I'm one guy who won't be watching tonight to find out.
No, I won't either. But, Jimmy, as we say that tonight between Green Bay and that Eagles game on Monday Night Football tonight, could old man age be catching up with Mr. Rodgers? I mean, the guy rode the pine for years waiting for his chance, and then he got his chance. and he's been there for a while, and now maybe it's time for him to hang it up while he still has maybe a little bit of sense left. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think he maybe another 2 years or so, but yeah, he's getting closer to that retirement age. But I will say this, Greg. Chad's not going to watch the game. You're not watching the game. Dave's not watching the game, but I'll be watching that game for one fact only.
Why is that?
It's the only game it's on?
No.
It's in Philadelphia.
Because of my girl, my friend back here in Hamburg, who I work with, Tennessee Pickle. That's what I call her.
Hey, Miss Pickle, if you're listening, Jimmy is going to watch that game.
Listening, you get free coffee tomorrow if the Eagles win. Yes, I'm going to see the free coffee for everybody down here in Hamburg.
And listen, if you don't win, you get the pickle.
Yes. So, no.
I just take it. No, I just stop. Make it stop, please. It hurts.
No. So the Eagles, I will be watching the game, so everybody down here in Hamburg can get their free coffee at Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, well, hell, if they're just giving it out free when the Eagles win, imagine
if the Eagles win.
They'd be giving out gold when the Steelers win, man. You know what I'm saying? But anyhow, Jimmy,
get back to your question. No, Aaron Rodgers, man. What's going on with him? I think it's basically because if you guys remember back in the preseason, the Packers cut one of his favorite offensive linemen, Josh Sitton.
Okay, all right.
Who protected his blind side.
I did not know that, but go ahead.
He protected his blind side. Now he has another guy, whoever he is, protecting his blind, so he doesn't feel too comfortable there because Sitton was there since the beginning of time.
Well, especially if you get hit a couple of times on that side. Yeah, I wouldn't have a lot.
Nervous.
I'm not going to have a lot of confidence either. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the confidence level isn't there. Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and he'll get his touchdowns and he'll get his yardage, but it's still like to me he looks like he's sort of nervous still back there in a way because he's not sort of used to that offensive line like he was a few years ago. Because a few years ago, and even last year, was the same offensive line for like 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. So he's not still comfortable even over 12, 13 games into the season.
Well, hey, let's not stop beating around the bush now. What's your prediction, Jimmy, on this Philadelphia Packers game tonight? What's the score?
Oh, boy. Philadelphia is going to win. Final score, 35. Green Bay is going to lose. And it's going to be 35-17, Philadelphia.
All right, free coffee for everybody. Meanwhile, Dave, what's your prediction tonight then, Chad?
I'll take the Eagles, but not quite as many points. I'm going to say that's going to be about an 18-14 game.
All right, and what do you think, Chad?
I'm taking Mrs. Pickle with the candlestick in the library, which would be the Packers 25, the Eagles 17.
And there you have it. When he says about the pickle, I remember Joe Paterno would always say, when he came down to Unimart, give me a pickle. And he would take that dill pickle back to Sue. So pickles can't be all that bad. Monday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net, the home of the Huntington Bearcats. Tonight, Jimmy Tighe. We've got Dave Shannon and Chad States with us. If you'd like to join us, you can hit us up on Skype on Greg Banks 3. That's Greg Banks 3. We actually have a line, guys, that we can call out on, but I haven't figured out how they can call in yet because it's one of those numbers that comes up out of area. And I got to tell you, by the end of the show, I just received a call from a guy who wants to give me a grant from the federal government. And I said, oh, you're giving out money? He goes, yes, we're giving out money. I said, hey, are you calling me from India? What government are we talking about here? So I'll share that with you.
It could be Cuba.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hear may have some, spare money now.
Well, this dude sounded like he was from India. So we'll talk about that. But let's talk about this. College football. Let's transition here. We don't need to take breaks tonight. Man, that Penn State is something else. Who would have thunk? Hey, I got to go back, Dave, and I got to apologize. I was one of those guys said, James Franklin might only have a couple more years left. Well, guess what? Doggone it. The guy's proven me wrong after watching that game on Saturday, and they're heading to the Big Ten Championship. Did you think it was ever going to happen?
I did not expect this. However, all credit to him and his coaching staff because what they were able to do was to take that win over Ohio State and make that the fulcrum in their season and turned the season completely around and took them from, maybe in the discussion of the top 20 teams in America to actually being
the top
considered
10.
I heard a lot of arguments yesterday in favor of Penn State being part of the 4-team playoff coming up at the end of the season.
We're going to talk about that.
Now, this is all predicated. All the ones that I saw said a decisive win against Wisconsin. Penn State should be one of the teams considered for. And to heck with Michigan. You lost your games and all of that. And, Penn State won your conference championship. And if they do it decisively against Wisconsin, I heard a lot of arguments in favor of Ohio State and Penn State being in the playoffs.
I'm hearing those rumors too, Chad, but here's the deal. Reality is setting in, and we'll find out tomorrow. I think Penn State probably moves up to maybe number 7. Best scenario. But Chad, seriously, if they beat Wisconsin, Ohio State is still a factor in this whole top 4 regime. And, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, Penn State.
If they beat Wisconsin, this committee has a dilemma on their hands.
Yes, they
do.
Because
if Clemson holds water, which I expect them to do in the ACC, Washington does.
How about Michigan?
In the Pac-12, Oklahoma State could factor into this. I mean, you got to look at what weight are they going to put on a conference champion.
Right.
I fully expect the top 4 tomorrow to be Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Washington.
Okay.
With Michigan coming in number 5.
Right.
Wisconsin sitting at 6, and Penn State at 7. Now, Wisconsin's the one that if they win the conference, they're not going to get in.
Right.
They already have losses to Ohio State and Michigan. The committee will have them eliminated even if they win the conference. It's Penn State, because of beating Ohio State and winning the division, that has this conference set back on its heels.
But something has to happen with Ohio State.
Badger fans come Saturday night.
Really? Okay.
I think the Badger fans, because they don't want to make a decision like this.
No, that would be a tough one, Jimmy. I mean, even for I to sit there in light of, everybody talks about the resume that Ohio State has. And granted, they have had a resume over the last 5 years when Penn State had all those sanctions against it. But let's throw that out the window. Okay, let's talk about this season. Penn State loses to Michigan, but we beat Ohio State. You think Penn State deserves, if they win the Big Ten championship, to represent? Or is Ohio State still going to show up?
Well, you have to look at it. You also have to look at the strength of schedules, and I think the committee is also going to look at the strength of schedules for the top 8 teams or 9 teams. And
that's a part of the criteria.
If Penn State wins, that's going to be a big dilemma for the committee, because you're going to have. You have Ohio State. You're going to have, Penn State.
Right.
You'll have Wisconsin, Michigan, all that. And right now the Big Ten is the juggernaut.
Yeah.
And then you look at what Chad said. You look at a team like that Oklahoma State game that is huge, because both of these teams both have 2 losses.
Yeah.
I believe. That's going to be a huge game. And it's just this is why college football is so interesting.
Hey, Dave, and well, you know what, Jimmy, and that's cool, but Dave, I got to admit, the only thing that's going to stop Nick Saban in Alabama from being number 1 is some kind of a scandal. We're going to have to dig something up on him or somebody.
Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, that could be one. I wonder what Lane Kiffin has done in his recent history that we could put on him and make this a national, headline, so that for some reason Alabama can't even be involved in the thing. And then we get
Herb Street would be devastated.
Paul
Feinbaugh would die. That little guy would probably
should be off air.
He would probably just walk in front of a train, kill me now. And I hate to say that, but okay. So listen, Chad said.
Let me say one last thing, Greg, about the Penn State thing.
Yeah.
And I agree with the people on ESPN. And when they say decisive victory, you're talking probably around 3 touchdowns. Can Penn State beat Wisconsin by 3 touchdowns?
Well, I don't know
if they can.
And here's what I think, Dave. I think they're all wrong. I don't think it has to be a decisive victory. A victory itself puts that committee in a dilemma.
Yeah.
Because you just won the Big Ten, you just won the division, and you've beat Ohio State head-to-head. You've got a dilemma on your hands, even if they win the game by 2 points.
Hey, if Penn State just beat Michigan State over the weekend, 45-12, how resounding do you need to beat them? And then, okay, well, anyhow, listen, McSorley.
By the way,
Barkley.
I thought it was interesting, and they noted this in the TV coverage that this was a get-even game because they harkened back to last season.
Yeah, that's right.
When D'Antonio also ran up the score against Penn State. And it's like, okay, here you go. Payback's a you-know-what.
Well, Franklin could have even run that score up even further if he really wanted to. I mean, if that guy wanted to. But I saw some fresh faces in there probably by like the early part of the fourth quarter. So the reality is, if he wanted to make that like a shootout like the Pitt game that we're going to talk about and make it like a basketball score, he could have very easily done that. You know what I mean? Or he could have made it very similar to a Penn State wrestling match where Penn State ended up with 76 and Michigan State with 3, Chad. You know what I mean? Jimmy, what were you going to say real quick?
Exactly.
Here's the thing. Remember, it's going to be a big dilemma. Let's say, if Penn State wins, they won their conference, they win the Big Ten championship. Yeah. Let's put them in there. Okay. But if Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State and Penn State beats Wisconsin,
right,
that's where the dilemma is going to come.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to look at strength of schedule. What teams did Penn State beat?
Yeah.
What teams did
Wisconsin or Ohio Oklahoma State beat? Yeah, or Oklahoma. Yeah.
That's the dilemma.
Hey, listen. Either way, folks, listen to me. Somewhere over the holidays, let's hope it's not on the 28th of December, but somewhere closer to New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. I'll even take the day after. I know it doesn't work like that. Hey, but pack your shorts, man. We're going somewhere warm, dude. Now, I can't say that about Pitt. Let's talk about them real quick. That Pitt game, my God, 76-61. What the hell? Nobody's getting back playing defense, Chad. I mean, what the hell was that? That was like a basketball score.
I heard Bill Rafferty say, "Send it home, Jerome."
Yeah.
Whatever that was going on. I honestly, Greg, I found out about that by watching the TV set. I was watching Penn State.
Yeah.
I watched it scroll across the bottom of the screen. It said FCS scores.
Yeah.
Syracuse 61, Pitt 76. And I thought,
whoa,
wait a minute. Pitt's ranked. That's not a basketball. I had to go into Google.
Yeah.
Pitt football. Like, oh my God!
I watched that game. Score. I switched back and forth, man. So yeah, it was unbelievable. Now I must say, Jimmy, in your defense, Pitt has a hell of an offense. But what's the deal? What's the deal with the defense? I mean, do you see anything glaring there when you let Syracuse score 61 points when they haven't even scored more than 3 or 4 touchdowns?
Narduzzi has to his recruiting coming up for this next season, right?
Or a defensive, hopefully.
All defensive players, because every one of them defensive backs and whoever else on that Pitt team who plays defense can't play. If you're giving up 61 points to Syracuse?
Syracuse, yeah.
Come on now.
Syracuse
our
looked like
offenses we can compete with any team in college football,
right?
Offense only. Well, but when our defense is there, that's where we lose them games.
Well, Monday Night Sport Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Jimmy Tighe down in Berks County, Chad States, Huntington, and Dave Shannon from the Altoona area. Tonight, actually, in Erie. Dave, when you hear of a score like that, 76-61, a football game, obviously, as Jimmy said, you got to heavy up on getting people on your defense. Now, here's the other dilemma, and somebody can speak to this. I'll let Dave speak to it. Connors. Hey, chances are, Jimmy, at the end of the season, he might not come back because guess what? I might need a running back like Connors. So now we might have to basically work on the offense too. Dave, what do you do when you're Narduzzi now?
You got to keep that in the back of your mind. Let's say that James Conner decides to stay at Pitt for one more season, but he's going to go next year.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a given. That's what everybody's thinking. So that has to be there because you want to have a running back in there for a season. Maybe you redshirt him, but you need to have him around so he can understand what your philosophy is, how your blocking schemes work and things like that, because you're starting to build a pattern at that point that you want to stick to. So that has to be an important part of it. Now if you find yourself a good running back at a high school somewhere, then the rest of your effort definitely has to be placed, and you have to figure out exactly where your problems are. Right. Is it secondary? Is it linebackers? Or is it the defensive line? You got to figure out where your weaknesses are, and then recruit specifically to those needs.
Hey, Chad, I got to believe Narduzzi, Franklin probably fighting for the same recruits this year throughout Western Pennsylvania and probably down east, to the best of my knowledge. And I can't just say when James Conner leaves, because he probably will, because I would. You're a kid that went through this chemo, and, maybe it's time to get paid, next year. So what is it that you're looking for if you're Pat Narduzzi, at Pitt for next year? Who are those kids you're bringing in?
Well, I'm looking for anybody who's willing to play Division I defense or be a power forward on the Pitt basketball team.
Is that Hohenstein kid that we saw at Central?
Listen, I'm still stunned by this because the Syracuse basketball team scored less points than the football team did this week.
How about that? Yeah.
I mean, for Syracuse, you got to be flat out embarrassed.
Yeah.
Syracuse basketball scored 56 points. The football team scored 61.
Chad,
I don't know how you fix this.
Okay.
It's unbelievable to me that you let another team score 61 points or that you had to score 76 to win.
Hey, let me ask you this, Chad. You saw some half-decent teams this year covering the Bearcat football on the Air Network. Were there any couple of kids that you said, well, maybe Pitt would be a good fit for them? We know they're not probably going to make it to Penn State. But wasn't there a kid down in Juniata?
No Division I athletes in this region.
Not even Hohenstein?
No, I didn't even see any coming from Clearfield at all.
Not even Clearfield?
No, you have to get to the bigger schools to really look at anybody who's going to make an impact. The Hohenstein kid from Central has got speed, but he's small. He's not that type of individual that can make any type of impact.
Well, I know you didn't.
Has nothing.
I know you didn't see BG, but they got some big horses up front there. That McGarry kid is huge. But they're still kind of small. You think?
You're playing single A football, and that's a big transition from playing Juniata Valley in a quarterfinal to Virginia Tech on a Saturday.
Okay,
huge difference.
Yeah. Hey, Jim. Now, Jimmy, you're sort of a Philadelphia guy, down in that area. We don't watch high school football from that area a lot, but I know even Johnstown, they had a couple of kids, the 4D1 kids that are moving on now from Johnstown who just got beat by Beth Catholic over the weekend. Is there anybody from that area that you think might be coming up to play for Penn State or perhaps even for
one
Pitt
kid
this
I can
year?
think off the top of my head. I don't know what his I can't remember his first name, but it's Devin Street, the former Pitt receiver.
Yeah.
His brother is being looked at right now by the University of Pittsburgh.
Oh, he is.
He
okay.
would either be he's I believe he's a 4-star recruit.
Right.
He's getting really looked at by Pitt a lot, and he's leaning towards Pitt. My buddy at work, Moses, was telling me about it. Me and my buddy Moses, we talk about football all the time, and he was telling me about, and that's a friend of his.
Okay.
And he said, he's being looked at by Pitt right now.
Right.
He goes to Liberty High School, and he's being looked at as a cornerback. So right there, that's a good fit. But in here in Shoemakersville and Hamburg, nobody. Yeah. Pitt has to go out to like the bigger schools, like the Liberty up in Bethlehem, or the Becca or Bethlehem Catholic,
and out in the Whitby
High School,
you're
the inner city schools to get these kids. Here in farm country where I'm at, nothing.
Okay, well you're probably like Class A or Class AA, and Dave, where Dave is,
Hamburg is single A,
and where Dave is up in the Erie area. I think it's either is it Erie Prep or Erie Cathedral. They always seem to get some players out of that area.
Cathedral Prep and McDowell are both, now Prep, because of the enrollment, is a lower class team.
Okay.
McDowell's the 1-6A team in Erie now.
Right.
I forget if Cathedral Prep is Quad A now or exactly what they are. But nonetheless, those are the two schools that end up being the ones that send potentially have players to send to Division I programs.
Right.
And that also plays out too, Greg, when you're talking about basketball as well. You'll see at times some, D1 basketball players come out of both McDowell and also Cathedral Prep.
All right. Before we head on to Penguin hockey and also Penn State wrestling and some other things, Chad, let me ask you while we're staying on football real quick. High school football, BG is going to move on towards perhaps another state championship in single A. There are some other schools down east. Imhotep shows up on the football radar, and they always show up recently in basketball. And we've talked about this ad nauseum before, but just to wrap up this segment as far as football, there is some talk, and Jimmy, you know what I'm talking about when I say that Hugh Conrad, who Dave knows from that St. Francis area, writes blogs. And one of the things that Hugh says, Dave, is Bishop McCourt's a good example of this, and I want to ask Chad and all you guys. This is a school that traditionally Jack Ham came from. A lot of great athletes. Tom Brady was coach, or was it Bradley from Penn State? Bradley. He came from there on Osborne Street, right there across the street from Bishop McCourt. Hugh seems to think, and, you know, people want to give him heat, that we know recruiting is going on, all right? How do these Baptist kids get into Bishop McCourt of one school? And I'm sure Bishop Guilfoyle and the rest of them have the same situation. And there's always that talk about, well, you know, somebody pays their tuition and they get a scholarship. Now, I don't know of any Presbyterian or Episcopal kids that go to these schools. I just happen to know Baptists are mostly black kids, or these Baptists are. So you're kind of recruiting these kids for your high school team. Chad, I guess I'll ask him first. Where's the fairness in that, Chad? And why are they playing in the same league as these other kids in the PIAA? At the end of the year,
well, they shouldn't be.
I thought we reclassified everybody.
Prime example here, Greg, in the fact that Bishop Guilfoyle won the single A District 6 title.
Right.
They would have won the double A District 6 title. They would have won the triple A District 6 title. They already beat Johnstown.
Yeah.
So you know they would have won the quad A District 6 title. I'm going to be willing to bet they would have beat Hollidaysburg. They would have won the 5A District 6 title. Now,
yes.
They beat State College. Probably not, because State College puts 100 kids on the side.
Oh, yeah, true.
You know what I mean? But I'm going to sit here and tell you that Bishop Guilfoyle wins 5 of the 6 classes. Now, there's a problem there if they're playing at a single A level. Well, it's time that the PIAA lets the parochial schools have their own league. Play amongst yourselves. If you guys want to bring in players to do whatever, play amongst yourselves. That's fine, and keep the public schools separated out.
Didn't we used to?
Juniata Valley had a nice year,
right?
And reward for a nice year is a quarterfinal matchup against a team that would have won the Class 5A championship in District 6.
And how many times? And Jimmy and Dave can attest to this. Has Portage been in the running every year, a public school district, and then here comes Bishop Guilfoyle, of all people.
Berlin.
And Berlin, now, see, but that's a public school. But let me ask Chad this. Chad.
How about Berlin running into Bishop Guilfoyle?
Well, there's another one. Let me ask Chad real quick, Chad. District 6. Guilfoyle used to be able to take kids out of Huntingdon, Mount Union. Anybody in this diocese could actually get in a van, and they might have been like an elite, let's say, athlete in Huntingdon or Mount Union or Juniata Valley, and go to school at BG every day. Transportation, the school district pays for their transportation.
Yeah, it's all about your transportation. You still can. St. Joe's did the same thing to Bellefonte here a couple of years ago. Bellefonte had a nice football team budding up. St. Joe's decided to, you had a Catholic academy that came in at State College. St. Joe's Bellefonte lost 5 starters off their offense and ended up winning 2 football games that whole year because they decided to go to St. Joe's Academy over in State College.
All right, I don't.
Honestly, guys, it's unfair.
It's got to change.
Parochial schools need to have their own leagues and play by their own rules, and then you can recruit whatever you want. It doesn't matter if you want to go play in a parochial leagues. Go play in a parochial league. It's not going to affect the outcome of teams can't help themselves.
Well, now it seems to me, Dave, like these kids from Huntingdon can go to St. Joe's if they want to. That's just as close as BG in the other direction. So, I mean, here again, Dave, we had this discussion years ago. Bob Jubileer, our senator, I mean, he wanted to shut the PIAA down after they pulled the games out of Mansion Park. Nothing ever happened because I guess they're independent. Why do school districts continue to support them?
Well, right now they have no governing body that they can organize under. That's what is set up in the state. It's the Interscholastic Athletic Association, and that's all you can work with. That's your governing body. Now, the governing body can choose who they allow to be a part of their system, and they can, at some point, if they want, choose to say no more parochial schools in the PIAA. You have your own class. Here's the problem, and it's kind of like any government organization. You never want to lose your funding, and you never want to lose your money supply. If you cut those parochial schools out of your league,
you lose the money.
There's a lot of money that's going to be walking away from the PIAA that they don't want to lose.
Well, I think it's time.
I think, bottom line, that's why this hasn't happened.
I think it's time to blow it up and reorganize. Sometimes when you get to that situation, you got to reorganize. Jimmy, real quick, you get the last word, and then we move on.
Look at like my high school that I went to. I went to Johnstown Vo-Tech. We pulled from 8 different school districts.
Yes, you did.
Right?
Yep. You had a sports program. Huntington never had one.
Mark Wissinger and Tony Penna could have pulled. They put a lot of kids in from different school districts. Like me, I went to Richland, and then I went to Vo-Tech to play sports.
Right.
That's the same thing as going to a Catholic school, going to a McCord or going to a BG. The only difference is this, is the kids from Johnstown Vo-Tech didn't really care about athletics.
Well, they were state champions at one time back in the 80s.
Schools did.
That's right. But at one time, if you remember, Tony Penna Jr. or Mr. Roman had state championships.
In 1986, we won the class. I believe we won the class 4A title.
Right.
In District 6, District 9, whatever that is over there. And then back in the 90s, whenever I was in the 90s, whenever I was in the early 90s, that's when the sports start going downhill.
Oh, yeah.
And all the school districts said, you know what?
That's when they started pulling their kids out.
Their home school and just go to the tech school just for their shops.
Well, that's when that was the last of the Vo-Tech schools. As a matter of fact, Johnstown was because
school in the state of Pennsylvania that had sports.
That's right. Altoona had already pulled out, and Huntington never even started. You went back to your home school. All right, Jimmy gets the last word on that. Now moving on to Penguins hockey on the airnetwork.net here on Monday Night Sports Talk. Greg Banks live in the studio. Jimmy Tighe in Berks County, Chad States, Huntington, and we have Dave Shannon in the Erie area tonight. Dave, you and I were on the air last week with the guys. Well, actually, I think we were on the air by ourselves. But anyhow, you went on the checking out television. This kid named Gunzel was pulled up from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. And that same night, the dude, he scored 2 goals within. Oh, man, it was like history making. That kid is amazing.
Yeah, and, once again, this is just another one of those points about the Penguins, and they still have the pipeline working to get the guys into Scranton, Wilkes-Barre that are good enough that they can do plug and play. Because, they really needed some guys for plug and play. When you lose Kunitz and Hornquist, you need some plug and play guys because that's 2 big parts of the Pittsburgh Penguins offense. And I'll tell you what, it is so. Both of those guys, both Kunitz and Hornquist, are goalie nightmares. They are constantly in the blue paint, causing the opposition's goalie a lot of problems.
Well, I guess my question would be to you is now if everybody gets their lines back together and everybody gets healthy, can we keep the kid up here? Seriously, he creates so much excitement.
No, you got your team. If Kunitz and Hornquist are back and healthy, then that's who plays. That's your team. You're paying them a lot of money to play hockey for you now.
Wow. Yeah.
And Gensel's time is going to come.
Yeah.
It may not be this season. It's heck to avoid. It's hard to avoid the kid when he comes out with his opening performance. Like he
no
did.
Doubt. I don't know if Jimmy or Chad are even aware of that kid. The first night he sat on the ice, Dave. How many seconds was it before he scored his first goal? It wasn't that long into the game. I thought it was the first minute.
Yeah, it was in the first minute of the game, and the second shift out there, and he was on Malkin's line. and he came down and he shot one that just rang right past the goalie.
Isn't it good to know that if they need to pull somebody up, I mean, we're covered, man.
Yeah, no, the Penguins are a solid team, and they've had a couple of rocky starts. I mean, they had another horrible game against the Minnesota Wild.
Oh, man, yeah.
They had one at home, and now they had one at Minnesota. And it's one of those things that I'm sure Mike Sullivan will pay attention to, and they'll address it. There will be adjustments made for any, future encounters with the Minnesota Wild.
Well, give us an update on the upcoming score or the upcoming schedule and what we're to watch for this week, if you would.
And by the way, before I get shut down, because I'll finish this and then you'll move on to Chad to talk about wrestling, two things. First, Antonio Brown caught a pass in the middle of the football field.
That's
yesterday.
a good thing.
And he got hit by two guys.
You're talking about on Thursday when he played.
Yes.
Yeah, Thursday,
Antonio Brown on Thursday caught a pass in the middle of the field.
Well, what do we have for
maybe that's the thing that's going to turn the
maybe
Steelers
he's been working with Sid Crosby, who actually comes across the middle all the time and takes a hit without even flinching. You know what I'm saying?
You got that right.
Let me ask you this.
One other thing I did want to say quick, Greg, is on Trace McSorley.
Yeah,
Trace McSorley, I made a comparison to Johnny Football.
Yeah.
He's a much better pocket passer than what Johnny Football ever could have been.
And he never elicited that money signal. I never saw that, man. I'm serious. I never saw that.
Give him a chance. You know?
He's got he's got confidence.
Up for the Pens this week. Stars the next game is Islanders.
Okay.
At Brooklyn.
Right.
And that is an 8:00 start on Wednesday. Then Thursday, they will be at home hosting the Dallas Stars. Saturday, they wrap the week up with a game against the Red Wings, and that will be at Pittsburgh. And then next Monday, 1 week from tonight, they'll host the Ottawa Senators.
All right. Best of luck to the Penguins and Mike Sullivan and the rest of the crew there. Monday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. We are live every Monday night at 7 o'clock, re-airing at Monday evenings at 10 p.m., and also, by the way, throughout the week. And you can check it out on our front page on the airnetwork.net. Hey, Chad, now wrestling season in high school is about to start. Penn State's already started, man. I lost track of them after, what was that they did last week, just before the holidays, I think it was.
Well, they blew out somebody like they always do, for crying out loud. No, they had a tournament out in Philadelphia. It was called the Keystone Classic.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
A whole bunch of teams out there, and they walked away with it. It wasn't. I mean, I can't say it wasn't a strong field. It just there was a lot of mid-tier teams that were out there, and they dominated the whole thing, and not to much of anybody's surprise. However, this week they will be Sunday. They will be at the Bryce Jordan Center to host Lehigh,
that's right.
an annual opponent of Penn State that is obviously has a good, strong wrestling tradition.
It's a sellout,
and that will be at the Bryce Jordan Center on Sunday.
It's already sold out though, too. Yeah,
already sold out. 15,000 people. Which is probably enough. The men's basketball team might get that in 4 or 5 games.
I know. You know what's weird though? Around here in these parts, the Steelers might play the same time, and you got to think about this because I think that match starts. Is that Sunday match coming up with Lehigh? Yeah. That's got to start at 1 o'clock.
The Sunday match, it starts at noon. The Steelers game's at 4, so you got plenty of time to be able to watch both.
Well, you know why the Steelers changed? Well, the Steelers wanted to play at 1, but they heard that Penn State was wrestling at noon. So they know how that works here.
Part of it. That might be part of it, but they'll win probably 7 or 8 of those matches and continue rolling right along. Now, this isn't as strong a team as what they've had in years past.
I know,
because it's a team with some they've got some youth in there to deal with, but the youth is really, really good. So,
well, they're actually number 2, I think, this week. We're behind. Is that Oklahoma, or who are we behind this week?
Oklahoma State.
Okay, so anyhow, but I tell you what, it's not like Penn State's not going to be there when it's all said and done at the end of the season. You know what I mean? And Chad will be doing some Bearcat wrestling on the Air Network this year as well, right?
December 10th, we'll kick off with the King of the Mountain tournament at Central Mountain High School.
Yeah.
You want to listen in because there will be nationally ranked wrestlers going at it, including Huntington's own Jacob Oliver.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that because that's one of the greatest wrestling tournaments in the nation happening at Central Mountain. So, Chad States, thanks again. Hey, thank you, Jimmy Tighe and Dave Shannon, for joining us on Monday Night Sports Talk. Let's do it again next week, guys. Have a great week.
You too, Greg.
See you next week.
See ya.
Adios.
Adios, amigo. Monday Night Sports Talk. So long.